I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Cryptid Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. And, today, you guys, I have a really cool guest. I got Greg. Now, Greg is a prior Air Force member. He's an Air Force veteran. And back in 1982 in Huntington Beach, California, Greg had an encounter, a sighting of a UFO. Now, I noticed that, people are going to say, oh, I'm looking for Dogman or Bigfoot. There are a lot of stories that associate UFOs with other cryptids. I'm not saying that this is one of these shows, but I love hearing other people's encounters. I find UFOs fascinating, and I just wanted to bring more of that also onto the show as well. So without further ado, let's bring Greg on. Greg, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good. Thank you, Daniel, for having me, and thank you for your service.
I see you beat me to it. I was about to say thank you for your service too.
Yeah, so, I saw your flag and saw your Air Force logo, the new logo. I'm not as a big fan of the new logo, but
no, me neither.
it reminds me of Starship Troopers for some reason.
Yeah. It's exactly. Being the career field that I was in, we started out air police, then I was part of security police, and now security forces, and I hear a lot of people, they'll post things on Facebook. I'm part of a couple of groups on Facebook that are dedicated to security police, and you'll see these new generation of security forces, and they're walking around in their uniforms, and there's no starch in the uniforms. You can't shine their boots anymore, and they're dressing. They're dressing. Ours was 3510 was our dress code. And it seems like they've changed that, so now they allow full beards, and so it's crazy.
That used to be in the field, that kind of stuff, but now that doesn't seem to be the same. I know I used to shine my shoes. I mean, I got married in uniform, had the black tux type uniform, and my best man thought he was going to be funny and paint "Hi Mom" or something like that on the bottom of my shoes, but what he didn't know is a good Air Force guy is going to shine those shoes every morning, especially before you get married.
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell is this underneath my shoes?
Yep.
Clean that sucker off. He was a bit disappointed, but
I had two pair of boots I had more than two pair of boots. I probably had about 15 pairs of boots, and I always had one pair that was highly polished, looked like glass, that I would keep in each boot in a separate pillowcase. And that was my guard mount boots. I had a uniform that I would have all starched up and ironed and looking super awesome. That was my guard mount uniform. And as soon as guard mount was over, then I'd run to the bathroom real quick and put on my duty uniform, my duty boots. So if I had to get physical with anybody, it didn't matter if I scuffed my boots up or whatever. So
that's one where your shirt could have stood up at the corner by itself. It had so much starch in it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. like for real. Many
yeah.
times I would do that. It would just sit by itself. So I was always proud of that. So
me too. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you before. So while you were in the Air Force, so I know this took place. Was it prior to you being in the Air Force?
Yes.
Okay. So, but while you were in, did you ever see anything that just kind of made you scratch your head, like, well, what did I just see?
Almost every day on my base, because I was stationed with the SR-71 and the U-2, and you couldn't get a more exotic aircraft at the time,
Right.
3 times the speed of sound, and black and menacing looking. But no, I can't say that I really did. I mean, in theory, we all see UFOs every day. We see things moving in the sky. We can't identify them. It is a classic by basic definition of UFO, but nothing bizarre. But we would talk to people in the area, and we got Bigfoot stories from people in the area. We were, an hour north of Sacramento, or in the foothills of the Sierras. We had the smallest mountain range in the world called the Sutter Buttes. Was not too far for for where I first lived before I moved on base. So there was weird happenings up there, a lot of stories of different things, but I can't say UFO wise.
Right.
Other than I had one of my master sergeants tell me once that he thought one of the early UFO stories was a crashed SR-71. He was confident that nobody had seen this plane. It hadn't been public, for a lot of years,
right.
And thought that many sightings could have been based on seeing this aircraft, but who knows?
Yeah, perfect. So you know what? Hey, why don't we just go ahead and let you get in on your sighting in 1982?
Okay, so again, 1982. I'm 2 years or a year out of high school, graduated in 81. A friend of mine was just about to graduate, and we were preparing our first trip by ourselves. We were going to go to Walt Disney World. We were Disney fans. Our parents were like, no, you can't go on your own. So, what we do is we save money, we do it all in secret, and then we just kind of popped it on him one day saying, too bad it's already paid for. But anyways, excuse me. In my area of Huntington Beach, when it was being built up in the 60s and 70s, almost every track had a little pocket park in it. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's just basically a small park that the local kids can play without going a long distance. Something I still do in architecture. We have to plan for these things. So we're sitting in my little Nissan pickup truck, eating some McDonald's, just kind of chit-chatting about what we're going to do, what we're planning, and we're, probably staring in different directions at some point. And at one point, almost simultaneously, we both looked at each other and said, did you see that? And we're like, yeah, I saw that. Well, what do you think it is? I'm not sure. And we sat and we watched this phenomenon for a while. And I just lived a block from there. So we decided, hey, I live in a 2-story house. I've got a telescope. We're going to run to my house, get the telescope, and point it out the window. It was like due west towards the beach. And we get up there and crap, there's big trees in the way. We can't see anything. So then we're back in the car, run back to the park, and by now what we saw is gone. So what we saw, and I've got a little cheat thing. Let's see if it'll show up on screen. Does this show up on screen? It's kind of blacking out. So let's see if I can draw this here real quick, what we saw.
Okay.
It's kind of started like something like this. We see 3 lights.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's gone. Yep, there we can see it. That's good right there.
Yeah, so we see 3 lights like this. And then one would disappear and start like maybe here, here, and here.
Uh-huh.
And then they might disappear. And they were doing all these like geometric formations. And what we couldn't tell was the size, because it was, miles to the west of us, probably out over the ocean. And we live close to what is now a joint services base. At the time, I believe it was a Navy base. It's one of the bases used to move people out to the first Gulf War. It's a big logistics center now. So we'd see ... maybe one disappear here, one show up here, and it just went on, and they were steady. It wasn't like they were moving, and because a lot of people have tried to explain, well, it's just aircraft doing formation work. Well, years later, I'd be in the Air Force and never saw this kind of flying or any need for this kind of flying where you might turn your light off, your running lights, and you didn't see the typical blinking of an aircraft running light or commercial aircraft. It was just a solid light. Now, I've always kind of wondered why a UFO would need a light. If they're advanced enough to get here, you would think maybe they wouldn't need a lot of navigation, but it's reported that UFOs typically have lights for whatever reason. Maybe when they get back home, they have navigation lights. I don't know. So this is basic. I mean, it's a very basic sighting. It didn't last much more than maybe 5 minutes. And my buddy is not a shy guy. He's embarrassed me a ton of times with opening his big mouth in public. But he made some phone calls, and everybody tried to say, "Oh no, it's just the military flying, or it's this, it's that. It's helicopters coming in." But you've been in the service, you've seen the way helicopters fly. I mean, they can fly in formation, but not dead steady like these guys were. There was never any minor fluctuation up and down. It'd be like here, here, here. That one would disappear and would show up over here. It was just bizarre. Now, why a UFO would need to do that, or multiple in this case, I have no clue, but it just didn't make any sense. I've laid out in the fields of Yosemite National Park where it's very dark. You can see the space station, you can see satellites going by, and I can't tell you, I've never seen anything like this. It was just too steady. I watch the skies all the time. Every night I go out, I kind of look up. You're never going to see anything if you don't look. I've got an app on my phone. I think it's called Night Sky. So if I'm unfamiliar with something seems a little brighter than normal, I check my app. Oh, that's just this or that planet. But I've never seen this kind of sighting again. Now, one day I was in a Black Bear diner, getting ready to pay, and I had my X-Files shirt on that just says "I want to believe" with the classic UFO on it. And this guy asked me, he says, "You ever seen one?" Told him a simple version of this. And he says, "That's classic. That's a lot of people report that. There's a very normal, if you can call UFO sighting normal, a very normal sighting." Now, what I'm going to say is I don't know what it was. It's just classic UFO, unidentified flying object. I'm not saying it was a flying saucer, like my shirt here. I'm not saying it was from another galaxy or whatever. I don't know. It's just bizarre lights flying in the sky that shouldn't be behaving the way they were. And that's pretty much it. Now, if you want to talk cryptids, Bigfoots, ghosts especially, I've got a lot of stories on. But that's my UFO story.
Okay, so let's.
Told you it was short.
No, I love that because I mean, how familiar are you with certain events, like the one in Suffolk, England? Because they have that's what they consider the Roswell of England.
Is this the one with the Air Force guys when they go out and the one guy still talks about every UFO show that ever shows up on TV?
Yeah,
I can't. You know what always kills me about that? They call the guy retired, but he's a staff sergeant. If you retired as a staff sergeant, even back in the 70s, you weren't doing something right.
Exactly.
I've always wondered if he's separated. And a lot of people just, maybe he did 12 years and they just said he's retired. It's not technically in what we know is retirement from the service. But that's always bugged. And I've seen his rank change on different shows. Yeah. From staff to tech to, something else.
Yep. It's so here's the thing. So, I'll get to that incident because I find UFOs fascinating because it wasn't until a few years ago when the United States finally decided to say, there's something else out there. And they started releasing all these videos. So, but let me ask you, growing up, I assume you grew up in California.
Yep.
What piqued your interest? Like, what was it with UFOs that just grabbed your attention that really made you? One, you're wearing a shirt that looks like it has UFOs on it and also a Sasquatch on it.
And there's
exactly.
The guy there. Well, it's probably my wife buys me all these. People are always complimenting my shirt. I'm like, yeah, you got to thank her because she buys me all these different wild ones and holiday versions of them. I grew up in what I think was really kind of a renaissance for all this stuff, or it was the, let's say, the grassroots, if you will. Close Encounters of the Third Time in the 70s.
Amazing movie.
I can still tell you what theater I saw it in. It's no longer there. That was something. The movies like Chariot of the Gods, we had In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. Of course, Star Trek I saw in repeats. I'm not quite that old. Every Saturday they'd play. So there was an interest that there was something more beyond us. I was raised in Christian schools, so my parents weren't really religious till later. My dad died of complications of brain tumor when I was 11, so they kind of found or went back to religious roots that their parents had at that time. But so I was always brought up with all of this religious. We're kind of the center of the universe and all that. And as a kid, you just kind of suck it up and say sure. But even as a teenager, I started to think there might be more to this. Is a God just something bigger than we are, or could have been from somewhere else? If you've ever watched Ancient Aliens, you've seen the rabbi who talks about Jesus being an alien human hybrid. And you think in the most technical term, if God is not from this planet, he's an extraterrestrial in the strictest of terms, the way we use our language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if God inseminates a human with the baby Jesus, isn't that a human alien hybrid? Not in the way X-Files might define, an embryo of otherworldly origins, but in a strict sense, maybe.
Right.
I read the book. I think it was called The 12th Planet or the 13th Planet. I don't remember. And this guy postulated that there's another planet in a giant elliptical orbit, and he's done some stuff with history. He's like, look, when these people were here, the planet was close enough. If they have to launch rockets like we launch rockets and going with the curvature of the Earth, and we plan it for where the moon is, like in those launches, that this planet was doing the same thing. They were, responsible for the Anunnaki. They might have been what Jesus was. So I find this stuff. I'm not saying I believe any of it.
Yeah.
But I find it fascinating. Like, I'm not a dogman guy. I think that's a bit of a stretch. Bigfoot, I can totally buy into. Makes sense to me that something like that could exist. The ones that shapeshift and things like dogman, not so much. So that's kind of how I guess I got started in. I was just naturally interested in that stuff, and I just kind of followed up, read some books here and there, watched all the movies.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to wonder what's out there. And I think probably Star Trek really cemented it. God, wouldn't it be fun to be able to go out there and meet these other people?
Yeah, Star Wars is the one that really caught my attention. I can remember who I was with, where we were at when I saw Star Wars. Episode. Now it's Episode 4, New Hope.
But as you and I know, it was just Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I saw it in the drive-in with my mom, and they had those things where you hook to your antenna, so you got the music through your stereo.
Yep.
And I wouldn't have known about it, but everybody at school was talking about it. I guess I didn't watch enough TV to get the right commercials to see the advertising campaign for it. But when I saw it, I was blown away. I'm still a Star Trek guy first, but Star Wars was amazing.
I was 5 years old. I was with my uncle, and we stood in line for almost an hour at the Tacoma Theater, which was out near the Tacoma Mall. And I remember the line was wrapping around the building. So that was an experience for me. So let me ask you this. So after you had this sighting, did it change your life in any way? Did it open up your mind to more things? But again, you said there were 3 of them and they were doing these different formations and shapes and things like that. Did that kind of make you want even more of something like that?
In a sense, yeah. I don't think it changed my life, but I wanted answers. I'm kind of a guy like that who, in the back of my head, there's always something itching, even though I believe there's a possibility Bigfoot exists. Something itches in the back of my head saying, nah, it really doesn't. UFOs, I've seen something, I wish I would seen something closer where I could see some shape or experience something like the Phoenix Lights.
Oh, yeah.
And people want to just call it mass hysteria. I'm sorry. I've seen the videos. I've seen from different angles. That, I think, would have had more of an impression. Now, as a young kid, or like 18, I guess today I'd consider that a young kid. When people told us it was just probably military, I'm like, okay, but it didn't set right. that it just was too precise. Not to say that extraterrestrials would have all the answers and they're much better than we are flying or doing whatever, but if they've got here, maybe they do have a little bit of us on technology. Because I was thinking about this one day. If we're seeing out there, we're seeing light coming from the stars, and we're told that, okay, based on this mathematical theory, we're seeing light that maybe is 10,000, maybe 20,000, millions of years old, right?
Yep.
And possibly even from a dead star. All right. Well, put that in reverse. Let's say, Joe Six-Pack Alien is 20 million light years away looking back at our planet. What is he seeing? He's seeing dinosaurs roam. Why would that guy want to come to this planet to see dinosaurs roam? So, that kind of works in reverse.
Yeah.
But I might be open to the possibility of wormholes, folding time, the warp speed type thing. I think these are all possibilities.
Yep.
Why
all,
not?
All in the realm of probability.
Sure.
Absolutely. Let me ask you. So you mentioned the Phoenix Lights. I've seen video of that many, many, many times, and it's fascinating. And here's the thing: you had almost an entire city witness this going on. You're talking 1 million plus people if they were all watching. Okay, easily a couple 100,000 people. Did you know that there is a movie star that reported those lights as well?
I want to say it sounds familiar, but I can't remember a name.
Kurt Russell.
No, serious, really.
Kurt Russell. I actually heard the 911. I heard the call. The
really?
Call. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. And can I get your name? And I think he says, yeah, my name's Kurt Russell. And yeah, it was Kurt Russell. So I don't know it just because of who Kurt Russell is and him reporting this. It makes it any more believable to me. If I wanted more validation on it to be more believable, it would be the thousands and tens of thousands of other people that saw it as well. So yeah, I find things like that really fascinating.
Yeah. And it's not swamp gas. It's not.
No.
And I can't remember if it was the mayor or the governor of the state or the city that witnessed it, and he wanted answers. And then they did this very embarrassing press conference.
Yeah.
Where they brought out some dude dressed up as an alien and totally mocked what he said he was going to try to find out about it.
Yep.
Which, was kind of a disappointment. And, I've been out to Area 51 a couple times.
As close as you could get.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I've been to the black mailbox that some people might know, the little alien, and so we drove out there, and I'm telling you, your buddies, your comrade in arms, some, who knows, you might have known, were well aware of our presence before we got anywhere close.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you have to turn off a dirt road, and the entrance we went to, or there wasn't, we never even saw a gate, but you get to a point where it says deadly force is authorized. But you start to see like a Jeep or an SUV off in the distance. And we're kicking up dust. You're on a dirt road. And we stop. I'm telling my buddy, he was not in the service. I said, don't even get close to that line. Stop way short. And we got out. I just kind of waved up to the guys. You can see the sensors on the ground. You see the military police. I've read the sign and I know that's not a joke. And I had a friend that was in security police, and he showed me the rubber room at the jail on base. And I didn't want to go there. So I got nowhere close to the line. I said, go ahead and put your toe over. Just make sure you leave me the key to your car. And if you want to go, I don't know what you do with language on this show. So
yeah, no bad words.
You want to go F around, do it yourself. I'm staying here right by the car. I'm not on base. I haven't crossed the line.
Yep.
But it was interesting to do. A bunch of buddies and I worked in security at Disneyland after I got out of the Air Force for about 10 years. And we were planning a little expedition because we wanted to beat the Secretary of the Air Force. This would have been in the 90s. They grabbed a bunch of land back because people would go out to the top of this mountain and peer down into Area 51. Well, we didn't make it out before that happened, unfortunately. But I've got as close as I want to get without pushing the button or visit. That's just not, as a veteran, I can visit bases. I've got my cards at almost every base that's close to me to go shop, do whatever. I'm not going on base the other way, So
Nope.
I'll go to Nellis, I'll do those, but
I'm just here to tell people out there, if you watch this episode or whatever, being a former security police officer, when I was in, there were two sides. You had law enforcement side. They did canine, they wrote tickets, they did traffic stops, that type of stuff. Then you had security specialists. These are guys that walk the flight line, watch missile sites, watch the weapon storage area on base. Those are the guys you do not want to show up, because when we show up, you could try to talk all you want. You're going to be eating the ground. You're going to be eating tarmac, because we're going to cuff you as Roscoe P. Coltrane. You say we're going to cuff you and stuff you, and then we'll start asking questions after. We're not going to play around with you. We're not going to be this. Oh, wait. Nope. We're yoking you up, and you're getting in the back of a car, and you're driving off to wherever they take you to talk to you. So, but yeah. So, hey, Greg, I'm gonna tell you, this is fun. I really enjoyed this, and I hope this episode does well. I've got like two more people with UFO encounters that. So, you said you had a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and plug that YouTube channel right now?
Okay. It's called The American Landscape, seeing the United States by road, one state at a time. And we do as much traveling as we can. It's kind of all supported right now out of my back pocket as I'm growing an audience. And that's pretty much it. We visit roadside attractions, museums, things like that. Kind of like being in the back of your parents' car, if you're old enough to remember that, doing road trips as a kid.
Bro, I've gone from Tacoma, Washington to Huntington, West Virginia multiple times.
We actually did interview a guy at a Bigfoot museum in Santa Cruz, California.
Nice.
And that was pretty interesting. He came in very skeptical because the bullshit show with Penn and Teller.
Yeah, the BS show. Yep.
And they, I guess, in the editing, maybe even in person, didn't necessarily treat the guy so well.
Yeah.
So he was a little skeptical. But once I started getting into it, what I believed, and some theories I'd heard and shows I'd seen, and we got into it, the guy really opened up. Yeah. Unfortunately, my cameraman wasn't quite as sharp on the focus on some of the show, so that there's a little weak area there. But on the episode, we also visited one of those places where water runs uphill. It's all illusion, but it's a fun little thing. So so we try to do stuff like that. I've been on like a bunch of military museums and
nice
Reagan Library, a variety of things.
Nice. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead. That's our show. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So just kind of hang out in the lobby for a second. And once we're done, we'll chat a little bit more. And then
all right,
we'll go about our business. So hold on 1 second here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Everybody, that's our show for today, man. I'm going to tell you, I have a very, very, very soft spot in my heart for veterans. Again, being a veteran myself, I could sit and talk to Greg all day long about everything and nothing, especially when it comes to the military. He brings a different perspective, being in a different career field than I was, that I didn't necessarily get a chance to experience while I was in. But you heard him. He has a YouTube channel. It's called The American Landscape. It's on YouTube. Hop on over to his channel, you guys. Show him some love. Give him a subscribe. Check out some of his videos. If you like them, like, share, comment. Same thing with mine. If you like what you see, if there's more things you would like to see, please leave me a comment on any of the videos you watch, on what you would like to see more of. Again, it's free to do. It's free to subscribe. It's free to like. It's free to comment. It's free to share. And again, all the support that you guys give me, I am truly, truly grateful for. And I always say, if you guys have ever seen an encounter, and you just can't put your finger on exactly what it is or what you think it is, or if you have an idea but you're not sure, feel free to shoot me an email at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. If you'd like to come on the show and just tell me your encounter and share it with everybody. This is a safe place to come and share your encounters. That's it. So I just want to say thank you so much for our guest Greg for coming on, spending a little bit of time with me today. And again, as like my buddy Josh always says, you guys always stay prayed up. And as I like to say, remember, a legend always begins with a sighting. That's our show, guys. I'll talk to you later. Have a good night.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?